On Friday in Australia, which would be Thursday here, back in the United States, the 2013 Australian Open draw was released for both the men's and the women's. Now, I went section by section in the Australian Open, and I started with the third round, the round of 32, and just projected the draw on from there. Here we go. The top seeds, the top 4 seeds, number 1 seed is Serbian Novak Djokovic, the 2-time defending champion. Number 2 seed is the 4-time champion, last year's Wimbledon champion, world number 2, Roger Federer. The 3rd seed is Brit Andy Murray and the 2012 US Open champion. And moving up in Nadal's absence is Spaniard number 4, David Ferrer, who last year had one of the best years of his career and finished with the league lead in wins for the tennis season. Now, the Australian Open is one of the most interesting majors of the year. It's one of my favorite ones because everybody's starting off clean. It's a brand new year, brand new prerogatives, and it's considered the happy slam for some reason. Like every slam is a moniker, and it's the one where you're going to get the upsets. It's the one where you're more than likely going to get a surprise winner, even though there haven't been any surprise winners in majors lately, due to how parity in the game has absolutely just disappeared. But let's start. The top half of the draw, I'm going to break this down by quarters. You've got Djokovic and the 6th-seeded Berdych in the first quarter, Ferrer and the 8th-seeded Tipsarevic in the second quarter. The third quarter you have Juan Martín del Potro and Andy Murray, and then you have Jo-Wilfried Tsonga and Roger Federer. Actually, did I get that? It's going to be an interesting draw, no matter how you slice, because, you know, the Australian Open is a very, very fair surface to all styles of game. It's a hard court that's got a little bit of speed to it, but it's not, you know, really fast, but it's not really slow either. And my apologies, Berdych is actually the 5th seed, not the 6th seed. But to start off, my third round projections are as such. I have Novak Djokovic and Feliciano Lopez in the first round of 32 matchup. Then I have the 20th seed American Stan Querrey and the 15th seed Stanislas Wawrinka. I see that playing out like this. I like Djokovic to get through Lopez and to get to the 4th round to play Sam Querrey. I think Sam Querrey is due for a breakout in a major. I mean, he's been in the 4th round several times in the US Open, never really had much of an impact in any of the other slams. In fact, he's had some pretty embarrassing losses. But I see this as the slam he gets to the second week. And I think, you know, he's got a decent draw. I mean, Stan Wawrinka as a player, I think he can beat on a hard court. Sam's got a big serve and a big forehand. I see him meeting Djokovic in the 4th round. The other 4th round matchup, I like Fernando Verdasco to upset Juan Monaco. And the 22nd seed from Spain has the lefty, who's been in the semis here, and was within a few points of beating Rafael Nadal in 2009. To play Thomas Berdych, the Czech 5th seed, as I corrected myself earlier. I think Berdych should get to that section. The only guy in his section that really worries me is Jürgen Melzer, and that's going to be a matchup I think he should definitely dominate on this hard court, because if this was a clay court match, it'd be a little different, but Melzer's not as suited to hard court as he is to clay, and Berdych should be able to go right through him. The next round, I have David Ferrer defeating Marcos Baghdatis in the 3rd round and advancing to the 4th to play Japanese 16th seed Kei Nishikori, who I have beating 23rd seed Russian Mikhail Yuzny. That should be an interesting part of the draw, because Baghdatis always plays well in Australia. Been to the final once, been in the second week a few times. That's one of the tournaments where he turns it on and plays well, because the court surface really is vindictive to what he wants to do. It's something that really, it's a court surface that I think really favors him. But Ferrer on hard court right now is one of the best players in the world. I mean, he's just so consistent, so steady. I have a hard time seeing Baghdatis go through him. And then the final round of 32 matchups in the top half, I like Nicolas Almagro to beat Jerzy Janowicz. I don't know if too many people are familiar with this guy. But last year at the Paris I mean, the guy got all the way to the final. I mean, nobody expected him to do that. You know, a lot of us were pretty surprised that he was even in the tournament anyway. But he just played unbelievable whenever he got into the draw. I mean, he's Polish, and there's not really a great tennis history from Poland. But to see what he did in that tournament in Paris, I mean, he beat Philip Kohlschreiber, number 19 in the world number 14 Marin Cilic, Andy Murray, Janko Tipsarevic, and world number 20 Gilles Simon. He would eventually lose to David Ferrer in straight sets, but he got into the top 30 for the first time in his career due to that run. That's one of the most improbable and amazing runs in Master Series history. Now, my projection is him losing to Nicolas Almagro. I mean, Janowicz is a good player, but Almagro on a hard court, I mean, he's got a lot of heavy topspin in his shots. He's got a big serve. It's a pretty tough combination to deal with on a hard court. And then finally, in the last match, I have Grigor Dimitrov to play Janko Tipsarevic. I think Janko gets through that, and I think he gets through his section to play Almagro. I mean, Janko got the quarters of the U.S. Open this year. The 8th seed from Serbia, huge part of that Davis Cup team, has been instrumental to why they've had success, and I look for him to go further. Now, in the bottom half, here's how those matchups go to play each other. 6th seed Argentine Juan Martín del Potro against 30th seed Spaniard Marcel Granollers. 21st seed Andrea Seppi, the Italian, versus 12th seed Marin Cilic of Croatia. Then you have 14th seed Gilles Simon against unranked Galmon Fils. By the way, these matches aren't definite. This is just how I see him getting to this point. And then 25th ranked German Florian Mayer to play 3rd ranked Brit Andy Murray. Then you have 7th seeded French blend Jo-Wilfried Tsonga and 29th ranked Thomas Bellucci. Tsonga, the Frenchman, Bellucci is a very talented lefty from Brazil. Then you have 19th seeded German Tommy Haas against 19th seeded freshman Richard Gasquet. 13th ranked Canadian Milos Raonic against 17th ranked and seeded Philip Kohlschreiber of Germany. And then I think the unseeded Bernie Tomic gets to the 3rd round of a major and plays Federer. I mean, Bernie got to, I think, the 3rd round last year, but I think he'll go about as far again, but I don't see him going anywhere past Federer. So my projections are for Juan Martín del Potro to beat Granollers and to face Marin Cilic, who beats Andrea Seppi. For Monfils to upset Simone and play Murray. For Tsonga to beat Bellucci and play Haas, who upsets Gasquet. And then I like for Raonic to beat Kohlschreiber and play Federer. So the 4th round matchups are now set. Djokovic and Querrey would be an interesting one. I think Sam could take a set off Novak. I mean, he beat him at the tournament in Paris. But after losing the first set in a bagel, I might add, it's going to be a tough match for Sam, but I think that he can eke out a set victory, one set. But I don't see him beating Novak now. So 4 sets for Novak seems fair. Then you have Berdasco and Berdych. They played here a few years ago, and it was one of the most convincing wins I've ever seen Berdych post on the ATP Tour. And I think they're going to get something like that again. I think Berdych gets to the quarters to play Djokovic, probably in straight sets. Then you have Ferrer and Kei Nishikori. Now Nishikori got to the quarterfinals of the Australian Open last year. He's the highest ranked player ever from Japan. And he had a pretty good run last year at the Australian Open. He lost it to Andy Murray after defeating Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, coming back from a set down in the 4th round. That's a very, very good, very, very impressive win for him because Tsonga's very good in Australia, and he's been to the final, end of the second week, numerous times in Australia. Kei Nishikori's game is pretty flat, and it's a game that's more or less built on consistency and using his movement. And David Ferrer is basically just exactly that, but Ferrer's shots have so much more topspin on him. I think they'll push Nishikori back, and I think Ferrer gets a win in 4 sets. And then they would play the winner of Almagro Tipsarevic, who I believe would be Tipsarevic. So I think Tipsarevic's game, which is more or less kind of an anything kind of game, he'll do whatever he has to do on the court to win a game. I mean, He runs. He's got a really nice forehand. He's got a serve that doesn't look pretty, but it gets the job done. He can hit some big serves with it. And he had a couple big wins last year. He beat Djokovic, which is a huge win for him. So I like Tipsarevic to beat Almagra, I think, in 4 or 5 sets to set up a rematch with Ferrer from the 2012 U.S. Open. That leaves Djokovic and Berdych in the top half quarter, and in the other top half quarter, you have David Ferrer and Janko Tipsarevic. Moving on to the bottom half. I mean, Del Potro had a really good year last year, and I think he'll get through his match with Cilic. I mean, Cilic is a big server, and he's been to the semis in Australia, but Cilic is very inconsistent, and his record against the top players isn't very good. And I don't look for him to upset Del Potro on this rebound ace court that they have. It's a very, very medium to sort of slow. It's not really slow, as I said earlier. It's kind of fair to all games, but it favors Del Potro more because his shots will have more sting on them. Then you have Monfils and Murray. Got Monfils last year, if not for an injury, would have probably finished inside the top 20. I mean, he's one of the most, in terms of pure unharnessed talent, he might be the most talented player in the world. Some of the stuff that he can do on a tennis court, some of the shots that he can hit, it's ridiculous. When he harnesses that talent and works his ass off to finally harness it, I think he'll be a top 5 player. I don't think we'll get past Murray, though. I think Murray, semifinals last year, lost that tight match to Djokovic in 5 sets. Had him up, had him down a break in the 5th. I don't look for Monfils to upset Andy Murray. I look for Murray to get to the quarterfinals to play Del Potro, and I say Del Potro wins in 4 and Murray wins in 3. Then you have Tsonga and Haas in the bottom half, and I'm going to go with Haas in an upset because Tommy Haas is due to do good at a Grand Slam. He hasn't done very well at the majors for the past few years. He's been injured, and he's actually got one of the best games for this court because he can do anything on a tennis court. He's got one of the prettiest one-handed backhands that I've ever seen. He's got a pretty big serve. He can get some aces. He can volley well. He can do it all. And this court really plays to it. And I think he'll be a very interesting challenge for Tsonga, and I think he could pose a really, really interesting threat to Federer because I think he's going to upset Tsonga. Because Tsonga can be in and out sometimes in matches, and as good as he can play when he plays his hardest, I think Haas takes advantage of a couple in and outs, and I think that Haas beats Tsonga. I mean, Tsonga's game is designed for power, and Haas's game is designed for a little more finesse, and I think that finesse should overcome it. Then you have Raonic and Federer in the final round of 16 match. Sorry, Milos Raonic, if you're looking for your breakthrough against the top player in a major, it's not going to come here. Federer's won this tournament 4 times. Been in the final once other. There's really not much of a chance you're going to win that match. I mean, unless you serve 40 aces, you're probably still not going to win it. Because Federer's the best player to have ever played the game. Federer plays incredibly well in Australia. And I don't see Federer's streak of consecutive majors reaching the quarterfinals ending soon. He's not lost before the quarterfinals of a major since the 2004 French Open in June. That'll be almost 9 years coming up this year. Federer's all-court game gets through Raonic's serve in 4. Now the quarters are set. Djokovic and Berdych, Ferrer and Tipsarevic, Del Potro and Murray, Haas and Federer. I like the top 4 players to advance. That means I like Djokovic to beat Berdych, Ferrer to beat Tipsarevic, Murray to beat Del Potro, and Federer to beat Haas. Now, these are all going to be some really good matches because all these guys match up well against each other. But I like Djokovic in 4 over Berdych. He's the 3-time champion down here, and he's won it the last 2 years, Djokovic is. And this is the one slam where Berdych honestly hasn't had great success. I mean, he's been to the semis of the U.S. Open. He's been to the finals of Wimbledon. He's been to the semis of the French. I mean, Berdych has played well in all the majors, but he's never gotten past the quarterfinals here. And this is not going to be the year he changes that because he'd have to go through Djokovic, and Djokovic's all-court game is too good. I like Novak in 4 sets. I think it's fair. I think that Berdych can take a set off of him, and I think that Novak will wake up enough to win this match in 4. Novak's serving some of the best I've seen him, and he's hitting his forehand in a groove. I mean, he came off winning the World Tour Championships in London, beating Federer to finally win that title. He's got it all going on right now, and I don't see Thomas Berdych getting in his way. Then you got Ferrer and Tipsarevic. The 5-set epic these two played at the US Open was over 4 hours long. It was one of the best matches of the tournament, and I like for Ferrer to get through in less time. I say 4 sets for Ferrer to dispatch Janko Tipsarevic. Because Janko's game is a game that can give Ferrer trouble. He can take the ball early and he can hit winners. He has a big serve. He's not afraid to come forward. And Ferrer has struggled against guys like that. But I give Ferrer an edge because his experience in majors, he's been to the semis of the Australian Open and the US Open before, and the French Open. So I have to give kudos to Ferrer, and I think that he gets to that match in 4. Then you got Murray and Del Potro. Del Potro's made the quarterfinals here a few times. Pretty much every time he loses in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open, he pretty much goes away after the first set. And Murray's a guy that when he gets on top of you, he doesn't let go. I think Murray gets to Del Potro. I think Murray advances to his, I believe this would be his 4th straight semifinal here down under, in a 3-set win over Juan Martín Del Potro. And the bottom half, give me Federer and straights to beat Haas. Federer and straights. They played once here in 2006, and Federer had to win in 5. That was his second title in Australia. But I don't see Haas giving Federer trouble this time around. I think Haas playing well. I think he can beat Tsonga and beat Gasquet to get here. But Federer's a completely different animal altogether, and Federer will dispatch him. So it leads to the top 4 in the semis: Ferrer and Djokovic, and Murray and Federer. Any of these matches could go either way. Would I actually be shocked if Ferrer beat Djokovic? Actually, I wouldn't be. Because this is the surface other than clay that gives Ferrer the best chance. On a slick, hard court or grass, I wouldn't favor Ferrer over any of the top guys. But I give him an edge on this court because he's able to do what he wants on it. It's fast enough to the point where his serve gets some juice on it, but it's slow enough to the point where he can move well and still keep in position to hit shots. But I think that being said, Novak Djokovic just has way too much for him on this surface. I mean, we saw it happen in the US Open last year. I mean, Ferrer won the first set and Djokovic just steamrolled him the rest of the way. I don't think we're going to get something like that, but I think we're going to get something where I think that Djokovic gets on top of him, and I say wins in 4 tight sets, maybe a few tie breaks, because those two play close matches against each other. I mean, even though Novak blew him out the last 3 sets in New York, still was a 4-setter, so it still counts as pretty close. And I got to give Novak the nod here in 4 tight ones. Then you got Murray and Federer. Murray trying to make amends for last year's 5-set loss to Djokovic, but I don't think he's going to against Fed. Fed's not lost to Murray in Australia, and I don't think Fed will lose to him in Australia this year. Fed's won this title 4 times. He wants another shot at it. He's hungry. And in the semis of this tournament down here in a major, I don't see Murray slowing Federer down. I think Federer gets payback for what happened at the Olympics when he lost to Murray in that relatively one-sided final. And I say Federer gets to the final to face Novak. There we go. We have the dream final. Djokovic and Federer. This I look at as being almost as intriguing as last year's final between Nadal and Djokovic. That match went 5 hours and 53 minutes before Novak won at 7-5 in the 5th. And the players were so tired they actually had to bring out chairs for them to sit on during the trophy celebration. We're not going to get an epic match like that. Novak's beaten Roger Federer twice in straight sets down here. In 2008 and in 2011. And I look for that trend to continue. I say Novak wins the title, maybe not in straight sets, maybe in 4, probably not 5. But really on anything but grass, Federer really doesn't have a chance to beat these big guns anymore. If he's going to win any more majors, it's going to be Wimbledon. and it's really going to be tough to watch him, struggle. But he can keep this match interesting. But he's got to do a couple things. Number one, he's got to be willing to come forward. Because when he came forward against Novak at Wimbledon, he had a great success rate doing it. Number two, he can't afford to make as many unforced errors as he does against Novak. He's got to try to work Novak on the baseline and wear him down. Move him around, not make him comfortable, and make him play his game. Make him play Federer's game, which is finesse and hitting forehand winners. Fed can do that. I think he could possibly upset Novak. I just think that in all honesty, it's going to be tough for him to do that. My prediction, I say Federer loses this final in 4. But it's going to be interesting to see how both players play because, they just met a couple months ago in the final of the World Tour event in London. And I got to give, Novak a ton of credit because Federer had him in that match. He could have won that in straights, but he lost to Djokovic in straights. That's definitely something he's going to want to improve on. He's definitely going to want to play better. But that being said, I think this match is going to be a lot closer than that. I say 4 sets. I say Djokovic pulls out the title. He'll be his 4th down under to tie Federer. And he should hold on to the number 1 ranking for a while. But anyway, this tournament could go anyway, really. Anybody can beat anybody. Don't be surprised if you see Ferrer in the final. Don't be surprised if you see Murray of those guys in the final. It's just how I see the draw and how I see it playing out. I like Federer to lose. I like Djokovic to defeat Roger Federer in the final in 4 sets and to claim the title. That's how I see it playing out. Take it or leave it. Comment me. You have my email on my page. You can always ask me and tell me what you think. See you guys later.